So today we're going to try something a bit new. We're going to do a little drive and talk, see how that works. I do miss being in the office at home, but my schedule's been a bit hectic this week. I haven't had a lot of time to spend at home with work and extra stuff going on. So we're going to try this out. This week I figured we would talk about something that weighs on a lot of people's minds, especially if they're people that are regulars at Knott's Berry Farm. And I kind of want to talk about the outlook of the three major renovations, the three major attractions that are being put together at the park. That, of course, being Xcelerator, MonteZOOma, and whatever they decide to put in Camp Snoopy. Xcelerator and MonteZOOma are, those both being down at the same time are a big deal. Throughout the year, we've been getting strung up with glimmers of hope and then being let down with some bad news. If everything had gone according to plan with Knott's Berry Farm, both of those attractions would be going right now. Things happen, and let's talk about that and where we see all these rides headed in the future. We'll start with what I believe is going to be finished the soonest, and that, of course, is Xcelerator. Xcelerator never should have shut down. That ride is just the subject of constant curses. The cable snapped. I think the drum broke. It reopened again in 2021 for a second and then shut down completely. And it since then has been subject to numerous issues. Regardless, this summer, it seemed like everything was smooth sailing. Once they finished with Fiesta Village and they opened that land up, they were free to kind of work on and finish Xcelerator, get that reopened. And in July, they told us that they were going to start testing it and that it was going to be up. And they held true to their word, and they started testing in, I think, the end of August. And then after basically the announcement event, people stopped seeing it. I guess something happened with the braking system. Unfortunately, this is a completely different issue now. So from what I'm hearing now is they have to order parts for the braking system, and then they've got to start all over again with their testing. Because now they got to test entire revolutions. They're not just testing the launch and everything else is fine. They got to test the launch, hope the launch sustains, and then test the braking system at the end of the ride as well. From what I'm hearing, this could take months. So we unfortunately may not see Xcelerator in 2023, and this may be the ride that they open up for everybody in January 2024, which was what I originally had thought was their plan for MonteZOOma. MonteZOOma was supposed to reopen with Fiesta Village, and everything was going smooth until they got about halfway through the dismantling of the attraction. They started taking pieces off, and they started kind of repainting. They were repaving and knocking out a lot of the concrete for the new entrance for the queue that they were going to make, and then nothing. Everything went cold and not a peep. Fiesta Village opened, and then we got the news that MonteZOOma was going to open later this year. And then people started to notice nothing was happening with the ride. It was just sitting stale. And then we found out that Cedar Fair had run into issues with the company they had contracted to redo the ride, and everything fell apart from that point on. So the issue is, I guess they dropped that company, but they're in the state now to where they're too far to just go back and reset it as the original attraction. But they also have a long way to go. Originally, I thought that they were going to get this thing going. This was back when I thought Xcelerator was going to have been reopened already. And I assumed that January would be Knott's Berry Farm's big news for 2024. So I had been holding out hope for all of this. And a lot of this really just depends on if Knott's can come to negotiations with another company to get this done at a reasonable budget. The pieces are gone, so they have to almost start from scratch without starting from scratch, if that makes any sense. They've got to replace the track because there's a lot of track missing, the loop is missing, and then they've got to reformat the whole ride, because the whole thing with the ride is you didn't know if you were going to go forward or backward. It wasn't just the same thing every time. In the original MonteZOOma, they always push you forward through the loop first, and then you go back to the other spike that's next to the Ferris wheel. Now, they were saying that you didn't know which way you were going to go, and that was like the new thrill of the ride. This ride takes up very little footprint in that park, so replacing it is almost off the table as well, because what do you replace a pretty thrilling ride with that takes up no space? You can't put something like Corkscrew or Boomerang or something in there. They've been completely quiet. Nobody knows anything. And the word is that we're supposed to know, they're supposed to announce what's going on in Camp Snoopy at the end of the month. So everybody's speculating that with that news, they're going to tell us also what's going on with MonteZOOma, since that's basically right next to the dirt lot that they've got in Camp Snoopy now. And there's not much hope. There's a lot of dread that it's not going to be good news. It looks bleak, mainly because they haven't even shown any signs of life over there anymore. I haven't seen a worker over there in months. I haven't even seen brooms or anything. I saw the door was open to the maintenance room underneath the loading bay, but other than that, it looks like it's waiting to be torn down. Now, if they do tear it down, I don't see them tearing it down. I'm gonna hold out hope here. Cedar Fair is not that crazy. MonteZOOma's been around since what, the 70s, early 80s, something like that. I think the 70s. There's too much history there. That would be like getting rid of Ghost Town. On the same token, the other side of that, the Church of Reflections was also a big part of Knott's Berry Farm's history, and they sold that to Buena Park. Buena Park now owns Church of Reflections. They moved it across the street. You wouldn't even know where it was if you had never seen it before. It's right next to Soak City. But that was a big deal in the early iterations of Knott's Berry Farm as well. And Cedar Fair decided to get rid of that too. So there really is no telling what they can do, what they will do. If they do tear this ride down, there's not a lot you can replace it with, maybe another restaurant. If you do tear it down and you decide you want to get rid of Huff and Puff as well, you can use that whole piece, but there's nothing, you can't fit much back there unless you start intertwining stuff with Jaguar, like they already kind of do, where Jaguar runs between the loop of MonteZOOma. So I don't know, there's a lot of questions that are unanswered, but it doesn't look great for MonteZOOma. Before I depress myself too much, I'll move over to Camp Snoopy. The early rumblings were that this was going to be used for a family coaster, similar to the Snoopy ride they have, I think in Carowinds. They've got a family coaster, but that ride up in Carowinds, I don't think that ride, if they just did a clone of that ride, I don't think it would fit in what they have now. Since they've moved the walls back on the other side of that monument, it looks like they've actually taken away a significant portion of space that they can use to build that roller coaster. Now, they've cut all the trees down over there, and they're probably going to continue to cut more along the fence line to make room, because if it's going to be a family coaster, it's going to have height. Not a lot, but enough. I'd say maybe something like Pony Express. Here's the other problem. Does Cedar Fair, do they have plans for Camp Snoopy as a whole? Because Camp Snoopy right now is sitting on prime real estate for other uses that park could be using it for. Because the noise ordinances, that corner of the park is up against all business, as to where there are other sections of the park over by Crescent and off Western. There's houses and apartments there. And even like right across the street from Soak City, there's houses there. So expanding out would be tough, but rearranging the park in certain ways to where you can utilize the space that Camp Snoopy sits on to house bigger attractions. I would put it past Cedar Fair to do something like that. Now, if you do that, then what's the point of building anything there at all? All they've done is landscape that area. They've just flattened it out. They've dredged out roots and stuff from the trees. So all they've done there is set a spot to build something. But they kept the monument, and the monument isn't behind walls anymore. And if they were going to start moving stuff out of Camp Snoopy, that would have been one of the first things that go, because they got rid of the gazebo and they got rid of the little park area next to it. So maybe not in the near future. That being said, Knott's just finished basically re-renovating the final section of the park before it's time to circle around again. Knott's usually, in the last 10 years or so, they've been basically renovating entire sections. They did Ghost Town, then they did Camp Snoopy, then they did the Boardwalk, and then Fiesta Village. So the natural cycle of things would be to go back to Camp Snoopy, right? Knott's issue right now, especially since all of those weird rumors about the B&M Piper that they were supposed to get a couple of years, last year I think, is space. But as far as Camp Snoopy goes, they're probably just going to put some sort of family coaster there. And if they don't, then, like, say, if we don't see anything after LA, traffic is the worst. We'll know by the end of the month here what their plans are. And if this wiping out this whole back corner of Camp Snoopy, because remember, Airmail, we haven't heard anything about Airmail and the theater. That's still all behind walls as well. And those benches, I don't think those benches are coming back. So that's my thoughts on it, is MonteZOOma might be gone. Xcelerator probably will be up in January. And Camp Snoopy, I'd love for big news about Camp Snoopy, but I don't see that happening. Not with, I think Cedar Fair reported their last quarterly earnings. They ended up losing. I think they dropped like $9 million below their 2022 threshold. I think it was like a 3% dip or something. They're going to get their third quarter earnings here in November. They're going to post those. That will be without Scary Farm. The Scary Farm one will come in the fourth quarter earnings. So then we'll really figure out where they are. So money might be tight for the next couple of years. We just have to hold out hope that we will just get the park that we have at full strength. I think that will hold us over for a little bit. But I don't know. I don't know much. What do you think? Let's talk.